Good afternoon. This is Pat O'Connell calling to order the New Mexico Public Regulation Commission's regular open meeting on Wednesday, January 28th, 2023. With us today, Scott Cameron from our Office of General Counsel. So, Mr. Cameron, could you call the roll?
Chairman Aguilera. Commissioner Aguilera present. I'm sorry. Chairman O'Connell.
Here.
Commissioner Ellison.
Present.
All commissioners are present. You have a quorum.
Great, thank you. Next item is Pledge of Allegiance and the State Pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Salute the flag of the state of New Mexico, the Zia de Lo, perfect friendship among united nations. Okay, thank you. We have an agenda that was posted Friday. Commissioners, do you have any changes to the agenda?
I have no changes.
I don't have any changes either.
Okay, so seeing no disagreement, we will proceed with the agenda as posted on Friday. Announcements. Mr. Cameron, are there any announcements from Office of General Counsel?
No announcements, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I do have one announcement. Just wanted to highlight that we have scheduled the second workshop in the rulemaking pertaining to investor-owned electric utilities reliability metrics. So that workshop will be held Thursday, July 6th, 2023 at 9 a.m. Mountain Time with hybrid attendance options. Will also be here if you want to join us here at the Bochum Building at 142 West Palace Avenue, Santa Fe, New Mexico. Commissioners, do you have any other announcements?
I just wanted to add to that, if I may, Mr. Chair, that I certainly hope that customer representatives and all interested parties will attend that second reliability workshop. At some point, there will be a formal rulemaking process, and now is the time to get engaged in the workshop and in setting up the draft rulemaking.
Thank you for that. Seeing no more announcements, next item is approval of prior meeting minutes. In our package prior to this meeting, we had draft minutes for the June 14th, 2023 regular meeting. Any comments on the draft meeting minutes?
No comment.
I don't have any comment either, and I move to approve the meeting minutes for the June 14, 2023 regular meeting.
Second.
Mr. Cameron, can you call the roll?
Commissioner Aguilera. Aye. Commissioner O'Connell.
Aye.
Commissioner Ellison.
Aye.
The motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Mr. Rodriguez, do we have any people registered to make public comment?
Mr. Chair, we do not have anyone signed up, and I'm not aware of anyone in that hearing room who wishes to make public comment.
Does our canine friend wish to make public comment? We actually have a dog joining us in the room here today, but anyone else who's here to make public comment? Okay, so seeing none, we'll move on to the consent action agenda. So we have 3 items on the utility consent action agenda. Commissioners, do you have any discussion on those 3 items? Okay, so seeing none, I would move to adopt the proposed orders on the consent action agenda.
I second the motion.
Mr. Cameron.
Commissioner Aguilera,
Aye.
Commissioner O'Connell,
Aye,
Commissioner Ellison,
Aye.
the motion passes unanimously.
thank you. Okay, so on our regular action agenda, the first up is a transportation matter. Presentation by Ms. Stephans from our Office of General Counsel. I thought it'd be good to have this on the regular agenda just because it's the type of thing that this group of commissioners hasn't seen yet before. So appreciate the presentation and helping us learn more about this issue.
So the potential order from the commission accepts and adopts the Pipeline Safety Bureau's pipeline safety fee calculations for fiscal year 2024. These calculations comply with the Pipeline Safety Act, commission regulations, and the calculations were based off of methodology established by the commission via precedent in 2007. So the questions I've received so far from commissioners have related to the additional pipeline miles that were announced earlier this month. But the costs associated with those pipeline miles are not incorporated in this fiscal year's calculations because the active regulations of those added miles are expected to take place in fiscal year 2025 and fiscal year 2025. Would be the most appropriate place to consider those costs.
Yeah, I appreciate that. That was frankly one of my questions was we're setting fees. The fees are a part of the total amount of money to run the program. Just concerned that if we're expanding the program before we have opportunity to set fees, that there might be a budget mismatch. But my understanding from you, and thank you, Mr. Montoya, for helping out with this, is that unlikely to have impact in fiscal year 24. And if it does, there are other things we can do to deal with it if it happens. Is that a fair assessment?
It is, yes.
Commissioners, do you have any other questions on this item before we're?
Just a couple of questions. I see that we had a pretty large fund balance starting FY23, and then fairly low collections in FY23. Is this because we had low collections because we had such a large amount in the fund?
Well, frankly, Commissioner, I think that the commission would be better served if that question was answered by our Pipeline Safety Bureau Chief, Jason Montoya, who made himself available for this meeting. So I'll just defer to him on this one.
Great.
Sure, no problem. Chairman, commissioners, good to see you guys. Thank you. What I have prepared, because I thought it might be useful, is just a history of the fees that have been assessed over the previous fiscal years through FY17. So I have a copy here for everybody. It might be helpful to kind of try to understand where it comes from. Can I approach? So what this graph presents to you is kind of the dip that we have been experiencing with this pipeline safety fee. Several years ago, the legislature actually swiped it clean and we kind of had to start over and rebuild the fund itself. But the short answer to your question, Commissioner Ellison, is yes, we've had a large fund balance, which has since been exhausted, hence the reason for such a smaller collection in FY23. If you compare the FY24 numbers that are currently being presented to the commission, it's about the average since FY17 over time. The one that seems to have these peaks and valleys is the commercial, and that's because of the 10-to-1 ratio established back in 2007. And so that's kind of why you see it on this size of chart. If I didn't include the residential fee in the chart itself, it might be closer and the gap wouldn't probably jump so high in the peaks and valleys, but hopefully that answers your question, Commissioner Nelson.
Yes, thank you. So, yes, thank you. So, the proposal now is to collect roughly 1.2 million in FY 24. Is that correct?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman and Commissioner Nelson, that's correct.
Okay, and could you describe in a bit more detail these additional 30,000 miles of pipe? What are those?
So, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, the additional mileage that we're going to inherit in the very near future are referred to as gathering pipelines. So more out in the rural New Mexico locations. The federal government went through a rulemaking recently, and effective in 2022, the gathering pipelines that have forever been unregulated, if you will, are now required to submit annual reports and comply with federal regulations. There's 4 definitions under gathering. There's type A, type B, type C, and then type R. Type C and type R are new. We've always had type A and B by definition. And so the breakdown is we're projecting we're going to inherit about 22,800 miles of type R. And they differentiate between each other because only specific federal regulations are going to apply based on what type of gathering pipeline you are. So when we go out and we conduct an inspection, we won't be able to ask all of the questions like we would for type A and B. It's just narrowed down to more of a reporting threshold to kind of determine what do we want to see in the future for them. And then we have an additional 7,200 miles of type C. And the type C pipelines out there, there's probably about 7 operators that we have never inspected before. There are some operators that have type A, B, C, and R. And so we're familiar with their personnel, their manuals and program itself. So it's really a new program to almost every state with the exception of Texas. They've had jurisdiction over gathering pipelines for many years, just as a rule with their railroad commission.
And are these exclusively natural gas gathering pipelines, or does it include liquids, natural gas liquids?
So good question, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner Nelson, that's strictly natural gas pipelines.
Okay, so no liquids, propane,
No, sir.
anything like that. Okay. Thank you. I guess that's all the questions I have.
Just one follow-on question with respect to the inspections of the type R pipelines. Do you anticipate that also requires like a physical inspection, or is it only reporting, a report that you would receive?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Aguilera, there's going to be a pilot inspection in Texas that will kind of set the stage as to what the rest of the state programs are going to do. We are referring to it as Form 26, and for industry matters, Form 26 will be applicable to gathering pipelines. That we don't expect that form to even be published until May of 2024. Within that, we probably are considering combining B and C because they kind of act the same, and have a standalone inspection form for R, which may just be a remote inspection, self-reporting type program. But we will have boots on the ground with A, Bs, and Cs.
Okay, thank you for that. And I had the same questions that the chairman had about, sort of the budgeting. So thank you for responding to those as well. I don't have anything further. Thank you.
Thanks again, Mr. Montoya and Ms. Avila Stefans. I think at this point, we're entertaining motion to approve the order.
I second.
Yeah, I don't think I moved it, but I will. I moved that we approve the order. I was entertaining.
Oh, you're entertaining. Okay.
And I'll entertain myself.
Okay, so I think you just made a motion, if I'm not mistaken, and I second the motion.
Mr. Cameron, please rescue us from ourselves.
Commissioner Ellison,
Aye.
Commissioner O'Connell,
Aye,
Commissioner Aguilera,
Aye.
Mr. Chair, the motion passes
thank you.
unanimously.
Okay, so next two items on the agenda, presentations from Mr. Fisk from Office of General Counsel. Good to see you, Russell. First item is case 20-00104 UT. And it is, well, go ahead and let you describe it. Mr. Fisk.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Good afternoon. So let's see, so the first one. Wrong one open here. Here we go. So we are on 23-199 UT, is that correct, Mr. Chairman? We're in,
Start with 20-00104.
okay, oh, I did have the right one. Yes, so Commissioners, as you're aware, with regard to this matter, this is the docket for the EPE rate case, in which a final order was issued in June 2021. The matter was then appealed. That final order was appealed by EPE. And that appeal was pending until May 22nd. Let me get my dates right here. Until recently. And the court, New Mexico Supreme Court recently issued a decision in that case. Actually, it was May 1st, excuse me, or May 2nd, excuse me, in which the court upheld the majority of the final order, but overturned 3 of the commission's holdings on due process grounds. The mandate was issued by the court subsequently, and so the court has returned jurisdiction to the commission for, as the court always phrases it, for further proceedings consistent with the decision. And so I have drafted for you a proposed order on issuance of mandate, upon issuance of mandate, which would, first of all, reissue the final order, but only as to those portions that have not been overturned, which is the majority of the order, because it is the court's practice to vacate and annul an entire order of the commission if any part of it is found to be lacking. And so that's what was done here. And so this order would reissue the final order with the exception of the 3 findings, 3 holdings that were overturned by the court. And this order would then ask EPE to propose, actually it does, EPE and Staff Utility Division to file recommendations as to how to proceed in this matter, whether any, for instance, evidentiary proceedings are needed, etc. That'd be a procedural question on or before July 12th, and file responses, and then any other parties to the matter, interveners, could also file recommendations, and EPE staff and interveners could file responses to those recommendations on or before July 19th. And then the order would also require EPE, in case there aren't any extensive proceedings needed, EPE would be ordered to go ahead and file recalculations of its revenue requirement and its schedule of rates based upon the overturned holdings, based upon essentially inclusion of the costs that were excluded as a result of those holdings. And it would also require EPE to file a calculation of the total amounts that were under collected, the past amounts from the date of the final order to the present for each of those overturned holdings. And EP would also need to file a proposal for recovery of the under collected amounts which would include but not be limited to a proposed time period for the recovery and a proposed method of recovery. And that would also be due, just as any recommendation as to how to proceed would be due on July 12th. And staff would be required, and other parties to this matter would be allowed to file responses to EPE's recalculations proposals, as well as any alternative proposals on or before July 19th. So those would be the same deadlines. Before I take any questions, Mr. Chairman, I did receive your email yesterday, and regarding whether you asked me if we could upload I could upload a version of the final order itself and how it would be changed pursuant to the commission's court's decision. And I can do that, but generally what we do in OGC upon remand is we issue an order like this. We don't actually issue, this says that the final order is being reissued in this way, but we don't actually provide a version of the final order. That's something I could do. It's just, sort of stating what the status of the final order is with reference to the one that's already in the file, but I could do that. Essentially, it would be because the final order was an order adopting the recommended decision with some modifications. It would include basically the sort of language that's already in this order, because we'd have to do is describe the modifications that are being made as a result of the court's decision, because the content that's incorporated into the order regarding those holdings is actually in the RD. So basically, it would look a lot like this, but it's something I could do if the commission would like me to do so. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Well, I'll go ahead and start with just responding to why I even asked for that is I don't really understand this draft order. The first part makes total sense to me that EPE and staff shall file recommendations as to how to proceed. And then people get opportunity to respond to recommendations. What I don't understand is, absent that information, then how does EPE do recalculations if we don't even know really what the changes are? So I thought there must be some map to the changes that I haven't seen yet.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. So in discussing those additional revisions to request, of course, there were your revisions and Commissioner Aguilera's revisions earlier in the day yesterday, and then I spoke to Commissioner Ellison. And basically the idea behind the additional revisions to added requirements to go ahead and recalculate were in case there weren't extensive proceedings needed. It's actually possible that there wouldn't be any fact finding needed in terms of, a contested hearing or anything like that, to determine what the adjustments are, to determine what the rates should be. It might just be something that could be done, based on this order. And I think, Commissioner Ellison was interested in not losing any time in case we don't actually need any kind of, more extensive proceedings. This order might just solve it in and of itself, the new paragraph, because it would have the recalculations of the rates, calculations of the adjustments, and then staff would be required to respond, and the other parties would be allowed to respond and provide proposals. So I think, that's possible that, the parties won't see any need. They'll just have EPE's numbers for those three issues.
It's just the way the timing of these dates work that makes it EPE's determination that there aren't any big changes. And that's what's odd to me. I would think that there should be, at least we need to see the responses to the other filings on the 19th before anybody would know how to proceed to filing a recalculation. So I mean, that's where I'm confused. Is it just seems like a stepwise process. It should be, let's figure out how the Supreme Court's order changes our order and give parties opportunities to participate in that. And then proceed with, okay, what's the result of that in terms of recalculating rates? And I agree, if it's easy and there's no controversy, this could happen, but this forces that and puts the determination over what the thing says in EPE's hands, not ours. So anyway, that's where I was coming from, but it's like, oh, there must be a piece of information I'm not seeing here that leads us to believe there is no complication in this mandate for the Supreme Court.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I understand your concern there. I think, what you're saying is reasonable. I think, I think we could do it either way, but I do see what you mean, because you're right. First, let's figure out if there are more proceedings, do that as the first step, and then move on to if there aren't, then ask for recalculations. So I think it's more of a matter of timing. And I see exactly what you mean. I think at this point, because Commissioner Ellison had suggested, having it right here just in case, to avoid any delay. Either approach makes sense to me. So I'm going to bow out.
If I could add a bit to the discussion, my focus really wasn't the dates. So, I wouldn't have any issue with moving the date for filing out some. I guess my main thought was that it seems, as far as I understand, it's fairly clear that the Supreme Court said that these three items need to be included in the rate base. And so it would seem to me that, there shouldn't be a lot of controversy around putting it back in the rate base and looking at the calculations of what that would be. Now, there is another area that I think would require some discussion, and that is, so clearly they've been under collecting for 2 years. How quickly should they be allowed to recoup those amounts? So already the rates are going to go up by some amount when the rates are adjusted based on the Supreme Court's decision. So how much more should they go up in order to allow them to recover their under collections over the past couple of years? So I think, that's kind of a separate discussion, but in my mind, I thought there's no harm in having EPE go ahead and do some calculations based on what seems to be fairly clear from the Supreme Court case. So, and those wouldn't necessarily have to be binding. It would just be for informational purposes. Here are their calculations. So, I would have no problem with moving, everything out sometime. Say if they're going to file recommendations on July the 12th, then why not move the informational filings about the rate out, a week or two after that. But so just some thoughts.
Commissioner Aguilera.
Yeah, I just wanted to weigh into, I guess, explain that I saw it similar to how Commissioner Ellison saw it. I think it probably, given the Supreme Court's decision, it did seem pretty clear cut. And so I was thinking that it would make sense to start basically from EPE's proposal on how to handle this, and then allow staff and other parties to weigh in on that proposal. To have something to react to.
Yeah, my primary concern here is this case is about not following good process, so I didn't want to jam things together in a way that results in a bad process, right? So I agree with sense of urgency, but on the other hand, so if the idea is have EPE give us a first draft of what they think the rates look like, I see that as good information. But then we'd also need to make sure parties have opportunity to review that and react. And I don't see how the dates here. And I also think we need to consider the fact that maybe everything isn't as clean and straightforward as we think it is. So we need a date for the commission in here too, to referee any of those potential problems. Not knowing that there are any, there might not be any, but just don't want to make any assumptions. I think that's what leads to bad process, right? Is making assumptions and cutting out people's opportunities to participate. So I guess what I'm hearing is it'd be good to leave the 12th as a date for EPE and staff. And then could leave the 19th as a date for responses to those. And then I think we need a date. And also signal with this, there might be another round before we can just say EPE's first cut was right.
Yeah, I do think that the date that has been added here of July 19th to respond to EPE's proposal might not give parties enough time. So I think maybe we should consider extending that. And then if you would like to include a date for the commission, I guess I'm open to that, but
I guess one thought I had is, let's assume that, we leave July the 12th and 19th for dates where EP and staff would file recommendations, and then the 19th is responses. And then maybe we go a week out beyond that for asking EPE to file the recalculation of revenue requirement and schedule of rates. And then, give staff a week beyond that to respond.
sorry, a week beyond which date? A week?
So I should probably have access to a calendar here, but.
Well, is it a week beyond when El Paso files its proposal, or a week beyond the July 19th
So
date?
I'm saying that, so July 19th is when there would be responses to the original recommendations as to how to proceed. And then let's go a week after July 19th and say that's when EPE needs to file its recalculation of revenue requirement and rate schedules. And then one more week after that for staff to respond to verify the calculations of EPE in response.
And so then those dates would be July 26th in paragraph C would be July 26th for EPEs, recalculations, et cetera, and August 2nd for the responses there too.
Yeah, I just, given that the effective date of these rates is not going to change, I guess I also don't see what the urgency is. This might, I'm concerned that we're not giving parties enough time. And I think the rates are going to be the same, right? The effective date is not going to change because the effective date of the rates is going to be what the date of the initial order.
I would agree that the rates are not going to be different, but I guess the longer we go, there's more, the under collection period is lasting longer and longer. And so those under collected amounts are going to have to be recovered. So we don't want it to drag out for a really long time, but a few weeks here or there is not going to make a difference. So what would you feel more comfortable with, Commissioner Aguilera? Instead of July 19th, what would you propose as a response date?
I would propose 2 weeks instead of 1 week, and sort of setting that cadence instead of having something due every week, every 2 weeks, to give parties more time.
So Commissioner Aguilera, would that be starting with paragraph B, that'd be with regard to just recommendations as to procedure, could with that first date, with that EPs and staffs recommendation is, and any other parties voluntary recommendations, would that remain July 12th, and then 2 weeks from that file any responses?
Yes, that's what I'm suggesting.
Okay, so that would be July 12th and July 26th.
And then August the 9th for the EPE filing.
Let's see. 26. Yes, it'll be August 9th. The 2 weeks. Let me get this on. Come up. Yes, August 9th. August 9th.
And just one question I have is, what all are we requiring on July 12th? Obviously, EPE and staff and any other party may file recommendations as to how to proceed. And then it sounded like also on the 12th, EPE shall file recalculations of its schedule. Total amounts under collected resulted from each of the underturned holdings. So that's the July 12th filing. 2 weeks later is responses to July 12th. And then 2 weeks after that would be a new filing from EPE, either confirming July 12th or presenting a new set of calculations. So do we need something in between those two where we referee any disputes?
I guess I was thinking, Chair O'Connell, that the when you said it would make more sense to get recommendations on the matter before getting the filing from EPE, that we were talking about not requesting the filing from EPE until we've done the first two steps, that we first get the recommendations on how to proceed, then we get the responses on how to proceed, and only then would EPE file their recalculations.
Yeah, that's what I said, and then you convinced me that this should be easy. So let's test that. If it's easy, they should give us a good calculation by the 12th, right? And if the 12th reveals it's not easy, not just from the words, but the numbers, we'll know something. So anyway, that's what happened between when I said what I said and what I'm saying now. Okay, so yeah, it's tough to draft these orders verbally in these meetings, but let me just repeat where I think we're at. Is on the 12th, EP and staff and any other party may file recommendations as to how to proceed. Also on the 12th, what's in here is paragraph C, EPE shall file recalculations, etc. Then 2 weeks later, so that was
July 26th.
July 26th, then EPE staff and any other parties may file responses to what was filed on the 12th. And then on August 10th, we have a meeting. So I would say on August 10th is when we tell El Paso, give us the final numbers. Or your numbers were righteous and let's move forward. Or something else, but that just kind of looks to me like a way to proceed and give everybody a chance to weigh in. And I totally appreciate what you're saying. Let's not stretch out the period of under collection, because then as Storm Uri showed us, it's hard to catch up once you've done something.
The only thing I see that we would need to adjust is when staff would file responses to EPE's recalculations. It's set at July 19th right now, and yeah, I guess we could leave it there or push it back to July 26th.
Yeah, that I was assuming we would put everybody on July 26th.
Okay.
Staff. But that's worth talking about if you want a different date for
that's
this day.
Yeah, that process would be fine with me. I have to say, though, I don't fully see the value in having staff and others, weigh in before seeing EPs. I'm kind of going the opposite way of how you started, Chair. I would also be fine with a process where El Paso just, we direct them to recalculate pursuant to the Supreme Court's remand, and they file that recalculation. Staff and other parties have an opportunity to weigh in on whether it is correct and accurate, and then we issue an order on the EP's proposal. But if we want staff and others to weigh in, I think I'm fine with that as well. I'm not sure that step is required.
But we do want staff to verify the EPE calculation is correct.
Yes.
And I think that's the main goal in that last sentence, that staff may file responses to EP's recalculations and goals.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, I think doing both B and C to be July 12th, 26th, 12/26 makes sense, because that means that EP would be filing recommendation as to how to proceed along with their recalculations, and EP might say, we've done the recalculations for these two holdings, but this holding actually will require additional evidence, and a hearing will need to be held there. And staff and the interveners might respond Similarly, they'll have had 2 weeks to review the recalculation and what EPE thinks might need to go to evidentiary hearing, or if there's nothing that needs to go. And then they can respond to that. So they'd be doing the procedural, like what procedure do we need? Is it this clear? Actually, EP's recalculation, they might say EP's recalculation, we thought there'd be no problems, but now we see they're doing this and we need a hearing on that if they're going to do that. So I think that would work. July, just 12th, 26th, 12th, 26th for both.
Okay, so I'll go one more time, just hopefully, Mr. Fisk, if you can tell me if what I'm saying makes sense, that new paragraph B will be EPE shall file recommendations as to how to proceed on this matter on or before July 12th. And then merge that sentence with paragraph C. So the action on the 12th is EPEs. And they're giving us recommendations and a set of numbers that match those recommendations. Then step 2, July 28th, is staff and any other party to this matter may respond.
I see. So what you're saying is that instead of having a July 12th date under B, where EPE and staff are required to file procedural recommendations and any of the parties can, it would just be a date for EP to provide everything, procedural recommendation, recalculations, et cetera. And then July 26th would be the day that staff would be required to respond to all of that. And interveners could have the opportunity to respond to all of that.
Right.
Okay. That makes
So
sense.
those are first 2 steps. And then we've got a meeting on August 10th. So my question for the group is it worth it to allow anybody to respond to anybody on those first 2 filings? Because we won't have heard from EPE again. They won't have had a chance to respond to what everybody else says on the 28th. It kind of feels like we need to let them, if there is any
Or the
controversy.
26th, I think is what we were saying.
26th, okay, sorry.
So
So then
Right, I guess
using
there-
our 2 weeks.
I guess there could be time if, we're having a meeting 2 weeks later for them to respond.
Yeah, I mean, we can definitely put it on the agenda for August 10th. July 26th. So if we ask for people to give us responses by the 8th, is that enough time, Mr. Fisk, to do something rational with those, or should we just not try to hit the meeting on the 10th and shoot for the 24th?
I think August 10th would be fine for a meeting. So the August 8th responses will be responses to what's filed by staff, would be EPE's opportunity to file a response or a reply to staff's response to EPE's July 12th filings, and any intervener filings on July 26th. So August 8th would be the date for EP to essentially reply to that.
Or perhaps we ask EPE to reply by August the 2nd. That would give them a week, and they should be prepped by that time, and shouldn't be hard for them to respond, and we'd have plenty of time to work it into the August 10th meeting.
I can see that because, a reply, in a reply, basically EP would be defending what it proposed in July 12th. And unless there's something, that was just sort of mind blowing to them that was suggested on the July 26th filings, there shouldn't be really anything that new. They probably continue to defend and address the specific issues raised on July 26th. So I think August 2nd could be a reply date.
Yeah, that works for me. I would, in order to give our advisory staff the time they need to evaluate the responses and answer, I would recommend not including the date that the commission is planning to roll, the August 10 date, in the order. I don't know if that was the intention, but just in case they need more time.
No, that's right. I was just looking for what, in the interest of getting this resolved as fast as possible, how do we set these dates in a way that it fits that we can do that? Depending on what we see on the 2nd, it may or may not show up on the agenda for the 10th. Okay, so first question, Mr. Fisk, do you think you've captured, or at least there will be a YouTube record of it out there, right? So,
Yes, Mr. Chairman, it's pretty clear to me.
okay. Next question, commissioners, do you have any more questions or more discussion on this? Okay, so then, Commissioner Ellison, would you like to make a motion to help us move forward here?
Yes, I would. I move that we adopt the order as amended.
I'll second that motion. One last opportunity for discussion before we vote. Seeing none, Mr. Cameron?
Commissioner Aguilera,
Aye.
Commissioner O'Connell,
Aye.
Commissioner Ellison.
Aye.
Mr. Chair, you have a unanimous vote on the motion pass.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Mr. Fisk, and you've got one more. So,
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, this should be a fairly quick one. This is, let's see, order the open the order. This is docket number 23-199 UT. This is in the matter of PPC New Energy LLC's petition for declaratory order. The commission is well aware of the issues that are raised in the petition. This was initially discussed by the commission on June 14th, at the open meeting of June 14th. This concerns, of course, the rescoring of the innovative commitments for community solar project proposals that were submitted. Originally, those inclined the program administrator applied a sliding scale for the awarding 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 points for innovative commitments made by applicants. It was later determined that was not in accordance with the language of the commission's community solar rule, which mandated a 0 or 5 scoring. When Incline rescored many applications, some of them that had received 5s under a sliding scale went down to 0. Including the applications that were filed by PPC New Energy. And Incline had provided information regarding their scoring process that I'd included in my proposed order of on June 14th, including the fact that Incline, in light of the fact that they moved from a sliding scale to a 0 or 5, felt that they needed to completely reevaluate every innovative commitment instead of just looking what the scoring was under the sliding scale and then sort of applying, 3, 4, 5s become 5s and 0, 1, 2 becomes 0. They basically left behind everything they had done and reanalyzed all of the all the innovative commitment scores. Commissioner Ellison at the June 14th meeting asked for more information from Incline, which I provided to Commissioner Ellison. And among the things that, so the revisions you see as track changes in paragraph 9 add the additional information from Incline. Namely that one of the major changes that was made in the rescoring was that whereas in the first, the initial scoring, Incline only compared innovative commitments made in applications as a subset of the utility territories to which those applications were submitted. In other words, the applications that were submitted for interconnection in PNM's territory, those were the innovative commitments in those applications were compared only with each other, with that subset. Same thing with EPE, same thing with SPS. But when Incline redid did the rescoring, they decided to compare across all 3 territories, so that only the most innovative commitments, period, that were innovative commitments that were submitted, even if they were mostly in one territory, would be awarded the 5 points as opposed to 0. Incline also noted, and this order would note, that under both methodologies, the initial scoring and the rescoring, Incline awarded 5 points to 15% of the applications. So the outcome, while shifting scores, didn't reduce the total number of applications that received 5 points for the total percentage. So with that, I'll take any questions.
Any questions, commissioners?
Yeah, I would just say, obviously, I'm responsible for wanting this, I guess, order tabled and then reconsidered. At this meeting, my concern was that initially it just struck me as odd, how could a company that received a 5 under the previous scoring receive a 0 under the redone scoring? And I wanted the opportunity to better understand what happened. And we did receive a letter from Incline, and as Mr. Fisk said, I understand that when they went from the sliding scale to the 0 or 5 scoring as is required by the rule, they also said, well, the rule says nothing about being able to score based on geographic region or utility. So to completely adhere to the rule, we need to score everyone against each other. And that, that obviously created a more competitive situation, such that, some companies who did get 5s previously in a region did not receive them when compared against everyone else. So, I'm satisfied with that explanation that, there's a reason behind why it happened in that way. And I don't see anything that would cause me to question Incline's judgment. So I'm inclined to agree with this order.
Any other comments or questions for Mr. Fisk?
Nothing for me. I support the order as it has been revised.
Okay, based on that, I will move to adopt the draft order in this case.
I second.
Mr. Cameron.
Commissioner Ellison,
Aye.
Commissioner O'Connell,
Aye.
Commissioner Aguilera,
Aye.
the motion passes unanimously.
And thank you again, Mr. Fisk.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners.
So next on the agenda is communications with Chief of Staff. My understanding is we have a few items there, so please join us, Ms. Corey.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. There's just a few things that are on my list of things to update you on. Very excitingly, our website redesign is finished. It is live, although we are keeping it to a test group to kind of go through and make some content updates and changes. And so I would be watching for that go live push sometime here very shortly. The logo, as Jordan presented to you, is complete, and we will be sending out new letterhead to the staff and to the agency this. In fact, I think it's going out today. So we're working on the rebrand with the new vision that you all have for the agency. The other things that are happening is in July, I've been telling you for a long time it's coming and it's finally almost here. We'll be doing board development training and strategic planning in July. And so those are already covering your calendars. We're going to be spending a lot of time together in July and August, but I think it will produce good results and I'm excited for that. This is the last week of the fiscal year. So starting on July 1st, we start fiscal year 24. Our ASD team has been working around the clock to get all the numbers inputted and to work on closing out this last year and having all the contracts and POs in place so that starting on July 1st, there's no delay in work and we're all ready to hit the ground running. That means there's a new budget in place starting on July 1st. And so as we move through that and have better projections, we'll probably be in front of you, giving you in the agency an update on where we are once we know where things land. That includes raises for our agency as approved by the governor and the legislature. Our staff will be getting a 6% raise. So that's exciting, or most of our staff, I should say. That's very exciting to reward our hard workers with that raise. And then along those lines, the agency will be closed and staff will not be expected to work on July 3rd. So this year, July 3rd falls in a funny kind of day. It's a Monday, and then we have Tuesday off for the July 4th holiday. So we will close the agency and give everybody that extra long weekend this coming weekend. And that's what I have, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you all might have.
Sounds great. Thank you. Any questions for the chief?
No questions. I appreciate the update. Thank you.
Thank you.
And so next time on the agenda is communications with commissioners. I'll go ahead and start. Just heads up. 2 meetings ago, we started a discussion around a motion for delegation of authority, basically making sure we all had clear water to do things like sign letters associated with our committee assignments. Mac Lee and I are working on perfecting that, so expect to see it on the agenda for our next meeting, which is July 13th. Similarly, my technical advisor, Mac Lee Kirol and Robert Lundeen have been working on drafting a NOI, so notice of information, for the rulemaking that we've initiated on the commission's rule 1.2.2. That's a big rule. It covers things like hearing procedures and just like I said, kind of the machine code for the agency. So expect to see that in your package for the meeting for July 13th. Commissioner Aguilera, do you have any?
Thank you for your updates, Chairman. I don't have anything additional to discuss. Thank you.
I would just say for next meeting, I would I've brought this topic up in the past, the calculation of the RPS, the renewable portfolio standard for each of the utilities, having that up on our website. I just wanted to hopefully bring that up in the next meeting because there are some results on that. Wanted to say appreciate our hearing examiner Elizabeth Hurst's work on the SPS rate case hearing, which looks like has wrapped up. Appreciate her hard work and the work of staff in filing testimony on that case.
And thank you, Commissioner. So I think that's a great note to end the meeting on. Appreciation for all and have a safe 4th of July holiday and see you all back next week. So we are adjourned.